Yes, now is Amnesty International Philippines, Jerrie Abella. Jerrie, thank you so much for joining us. What does a former senator's bail and her temporary liberty say about the charges against her?
Thank you for having me, Rico. Well, definitely Amnesty International and many other domestic and international organizations has long been saying that the charges against former Senator Laila de Lima is fabricated. She is being targeted for her human rights work and for peacefully exercising her freedom of expression. We have said from the very beginning that former Senator Laila de Lima should not have been detained in the first place, and that she's being targeted for her human rights work. Her case is definitely emblematic of the harassment, intimidation, vilification, and persecution that many human rights defenders, activists in the Philippines experience, especially when they spoke up about against the war on drugs, as well as the human rights violations and abuses being committed. So definitely, while we welcome, of course, the granting of her bail petition and her temporary liberty, we also would like to see the charge, the third and last charge, ultimately dropped against her, and definitely, of course, accountability for those who are behind her arbitrary detention and all the other human rights violations she has had to endure in the last 6-7 years.
So, Jerrie, is her provisional release a significant step for the rule of law in the Philippines?
Definitely, yes. Former Senator Laila de Lima did hint at this when she was walking out of the courtroom, and she thanked the Marcos administration for respecting the independence of the judiciary and the rule of law. And of course, the hope of everyone is that this is going to be an indication of further improvements in the human rights situation in the country. But frankly speaking, there remain quite a number of situations, circumstances that tell us that more needs to be done in terms of improving the human rights situation in the Philippines. For example, based on monitoring by the University of the Philippines-based group called the HAS, war on drugs, killings in the context of the war on drugs continue to this day. There have been at least just a couple of convictions in relation file against police officers. You have activists who continue to be missing, for example, Dexter Capuyan and Bazu de Jesus, who have been missing since April this year. We have a journalist who was murdered over a week ago, right during his live broadcast. So definitely there remains a lot of circumstances that are concerning in the Philippines that needs further attention and action as well.
Yeah, definitely, because de Lima's temporary freedom is just one of many cases. There are so many more innocent people behind bars, and it's an indication of the very slow wheels of justice here in the country.
Yes, exactly. That's right. While Amnesty International is not able to track each and every case of political prisoners, for example, various human rights groups point to dozens, even hundreds, maybe as many as over 700 political prisoners languishing in jail, and the wheels of justice slow in terms of the cases. And that's also something that we've seen for former Senator Laila de Lima. You have judges inhibiting, you have witnesses failing to appear during court proceedings. And definitely, for example, the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has called her detention as arbitrary precisely because there is no legal basis to her continued detention, and also there had not been any significant progress in her cases, for example, in the past few years as well.
So what should be the next steps, Jerrie, for the former senator? Should the perpetrators of her being behind bars for almost 7 years be held accountable?
Yes, actually, I think the most urgent step now is to ensure the safety and security of the former senator. It must be noted, for example, that her life was threatened when she was taken hostage inside no less than the headquarters of the Philippine National Police. And definitely, she continues to be the target of vilification and threats as well. So definitely there is a need for the Marcos administration to guarantee her safety, security, and protection, especially now that she's out. And definitely as well, I think the former senator herself said that there has got to be a day of reckoning. Amnesty International has been consistently calling for accountability for those behind her 7 long years of arbitrary detention and other human rights violations committed against her. And this is something that the Marcos administration must work forward as well. Yes.
And how soon should these perpetrators of the former Senator Laila de Lima be held accountable? And how soon should these cases be filed against them?
Well, I understand from former Senator de Lima that she's basically just rejoicing for her after regaining her freedom, albeit temporarily. So definitely it ultimately depends on whether or when the former senator might be ready to initiate these cases. It's hard to tell, definitely. Of course, for example, her case is taking to date nearly 7 years to be finalized as well. So, and as we've mentioned earlier as well, we have dozens, even hundreds of political prisoners languishing in detention for many years now. So definitely justice has been slow, but definitely, hopefully, it will catch up with the perpetrator. So whenever former Senator Laila de Lima is ready to file these cases against the perpetrators to the highest level of the government, then that's something that we will look forward to as well.
Thank you so much for your insights, Amnesty International Philippines, Jerrie, Abella.